Hey guys, Kitty here. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about Uldaman. Uldaman, of course, located in Badlands, all the way in the top. And now there's two ways to do Uldaman. You can either do a full clear, or you can skip the bottom part right there. Now for the first part of the video, I'm going to show you the route I did and what you can kind of expect from Uldaman. And then the second half of the video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the data collection of 100 Uldaman runs. Now, Uldaman is a long dungeon. It can be quite long if you decide to full clear it. I did full clear it for all of my runs, just because I wanted to represent the full effect of what the dungeon can bring. The good thing about killing this bottom boss right here is it does drop a speed potion, so that is pretty helpful throughout the entire dungeon. Like I said, it is a long one. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and skip that boss that I just killed, you can go ahead and do that and just run up right over here. I usually like to grab that mob over there with the pull. And sometimes I kill as I go, sometimes I pull in packs. It's really up to you. I don't think about it, I just do it. So if I'm just sitting there talking on stream, and I don't want to think too much, then I'll just go ahead and kill as I go, or I'll, pull. It really doesn't make a difference. It is up to you. Now, a lot of people don't like to kill the scorpions. I do. They do have a chance to drop stuff, but some people don't. Some people think it's a waste of time. If you think it's a waste of time, you can go ahead and kill all of the scorpions. If you do want to do the full route, like I usually do, you can just go ahead and go over this way. In this area, I usually just pull them all into the final room where all the scorpions are, and then kill them all at once. Otherwise, you can just keep going straight and skip this entire part right here. Now, Uldaman, like I said, it is a longer dungeon. I think it took me around 6 minutes a run from doing the whole part. You could probably cut that down to around 5 minutes, under 5 minutes, if you do skip a lot of the parts. But do keep in mind, with the Bear Tartarner and the RP at the final boss, it's still going to take a decent amount of time to complete the dungeon. Now, one annoying thing about Uldaman is with 8.0 and Legacy looting, the bosses drop a lot of blues. So one thing I've noticed is that you're going to have to clear bags a few times and counter this either with a guild page battle pet, or you're going to have to run out and vendor, or you can drop a mailbox and stuff over. Now, I prefer not to disenchant anymore. I don't disenchant because, like I said, the amount of blues you get now increased, which means enchanting mats have lowered in price dramatically. I just find it better to vendor for the raw gold now rather than to disenchant. So, what type of loot can you expect from Uldaman? I personally think Uldaman has one of the largest loot tables out of all of the dungeons. It drops a wide variety of transmog and patterns. Some of the transmog you can expect from this dungeon is Blackforge, Chromite, Aurora, Male Combat, and you have a bunch of unique blues such as Monolithic Bow, Spire Wind Fetter, Stone Vault Bonebreaker, the Shoveler, Wolfear Harness, Jinsu, Acraic Defender, Fireman Leggings, and then of course you have the four highly sought after pieces, Papal Fez, Pendulum of Doom, Jackhammer, and Miner's Hat of the Deep. Some of the patterns you can expect are Comfortable Leather Hat, Dusky Boots, Enchant Lesser Parry Shield, Searing Golden Blade, Star Belt, Rich Purple Silk Shirt, Craftsman Monocle, Sniper Scope, and Barbaric Belt. Now right here is where I like to join a group and leave to start the timer going to get teleported to the nearest graveyard, which of course is located right outside of the dungeon. And I'm just going to go ahead and make my way to the last boss to start the RP process. Now, like I said earlier, which route you choose to do determines how long the dungeon takes to complete. For the second half of this video, it is going to be a summary of my 100 runs of Uldaman, so my data collection. So I did decide to do the complete full run of the dungeon, but you can choose which route you want to go. Now, after you kill this last boss, you make sure you don't forget to go loot the treasure chest right here at the end. A lot of people speculate that this treasure chest is the only place to get Miner's Hat of the Deep, although I've saw on Wowhead comments that they can drop from the mobs. The issue with Papalfez, Pendulum of Doom, the Jackhammer, and Miner's Hat of the Deep is that they're all extremely rare, so there's really not that much information about them. I do believe all of them can drop from the mobs in the dungeon, and I do believe that the treasure chest at the end can drop the Miner's Hat. So that was basically the route I did for Uldaman for my 100 run posts. We can go ahead and start talking about those, and at the end I'll give my thoughts on Uldaman as a dungeon and as a way to make some gold. Before we start talking about my 100 runs, I want to emphasize that the values of all of the items are based off of US region market value average. Every server has different prices, but I wanted to use the US region market value average as a benchmark price, just so we have something to go by. Now on average, it took me about 65 minutes to complete 10 runs. Like I said earlier, I did a full complete clear. Depending on which route you go, determines how long it's going to take you. And with the 65 minutes per 10 lockouts, it took me just under 11 hours of farming to complete my 100 run. For the materials, it's pretty straightforward. I ended up getting strong iron lockboxes for the lockboxes, about 4 after every lockout and 39 total. For the cloth, you're looking at mage weave cloth and silk cloth. After every lockout, I ended up getting 97 mage weave cloth with 974 total, with a total of 419 gold value. For silk cloth, I ended up getting about 850 after every lockout, with 8,501 total, with a total value of about 6,206. Now, I used to do disenchanting when it came to the greens and blues that I did not decide to keep. After 8.0 and legacy looting, get a lot of blues. After one lockout, I ended up getting 72 rich illusion dust, 95 greater eternal essence, and 250 large brilliant shards. Take into account that this was only after one lockout, so 10 runs. So I then decided to make a judgment call and decide that I'm not going to do disenchanting anymore. I don't think it's worth it. The amount of disenchanting materials you get is so much now that the values are going to keep on decreasing. So I think it's just better to vendor for the raw gold rather than to disenchant. After vendoring and the raw currency, I ended up getting about 652 after every lockout with 6,523 gold total. For the items I received, I'm not going to list all of them. I'll go ahead and list the top 5. But if you do want a more detailed list, of course, for everything, you can check down below with the link to the Reddit post. For the items, I ended up getting a monolithic bow with a value of 15,759. I ended up getting 4 excavator brands, which have a individual value of 7,188 and a total value of 28,752. I ended up getting a schematic craftsman monocle with a value of 28,870, a pattern barbaric belt with a value of 36,994, and a stone vault bone breaker with a value of 41,391. So, what does this all mean? In total, from the 100 runs, I obtained 203,018 gold worth of items, of course, looted item value, based off of US region value average. 13,148 of that came from the materials and the raw vendor currency, and 189,870 came from the transmog or patterns. Now I want to talk about some of the items I did not receive because I felt like I actually got very unlucky in these 100 runs. But of course that is my RNG. Your RNG will be different. When I do another 100 runs for the 200 run post, my next 100 runs will be completely different. My RNG is always going to change, and that's just how this game works. So for the patterns I did not get, but you can receive from this, is the comfortable leather hat, the dusky boots, the enchant shield lesser parry, Searing Golding Blade, Star Belt, and Rich Purple Silk Shirt. Some of the Transmog items that you can get that I did not get are the Shoveler, Wolf Fair Harness, Jinsu Sword, Acryic Defender, and Fireman Leggings. And of course, the 4 big ticket items that everybody's always after: the Papal Fez, the Pendulum of Doom, the Jackhammer, and Miner's Hat of the Deep. Now that I got all of the data and items out of the way, I'll give you my general thoughts on Uldaman as a dungeon and as a way to make gold. All in all, I really don't like Uldaman that much. It used to be really good back in the day, but of course everything used to be much better back in the day. A lot of the greens that you get now have just decreased in value so much that it's really not worth selling. And a lot of the blues that you get have dropped in value a lot. Just for an example, the Shoveler, I think it has a region value of around 9,000 gold, when that used to be like one of the better items that you can get from this place that used to sell for 40,000 plus. I personally think that this dungeon is extremely overfarmed because everybody is after the thrill of the hunt. Now, what I mean by thrill of the hunt is everybody's essentially just chasing the 4 big ticket items: the Papal Fez, the Pendulum of Doom, the Jackhammer, and the Miner's Hat of the Deep. And they're just scrounging for scraps along the way with some of the other items that I've got or I've listed above. Now, don't get me wrong, I like chases. I like going after those big ticket items. It's a rewarding feeling, not essentially for the gold factor, but for the achievement factor that I finally obtained something. I got one of those big ticket items. But getting those big ticket items is just the start. Some of these items do have a demand, but some of them don't. And the ones that do have a demand, their values are so high because they are so hard to get, it can be extremely hard to find a buyer. I'm not saying that you will not find a buyer, because you will eventually find a buyer, but it can be extremely hard to find a buyer. Not everyone has a lot of gold, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5+ million gold lying around, that they can just go ahead and buy a transmog piece. Another thing to note is that I'm really not a fan of the layout of the dungeon. Of course, I did the full dungeon, and if I was to do this not as a data collection post, but on my free time, I would not do a full route. I would definitely skip a lot of parts, so it would cut the time down a lot. But with an average of like 6 to 7 minutes of run, it's definitely a longer dungeon. Another thing I don't like is that the amount of items you get from this place is a lot. And like I said earlier, it is because of the 8.0 changes with legacy loot. There are a lot of bosses that you kill in Uldaman, so therefore you get a lot of blues from the bosses, which it fills up your bags very quickly. And if you do not have a guild page battle pet, you will have an issue. You will either have to mail to clear your bags, or you will have to find a way to vendor, whether it be running out and vendoring, or like I said, through the guild page battle pet. All in all, that is my personal opinion. Obviously, some people really enjoy Uldaman. Some people really don't enjoy Uldaman. I would definitely give it a try. Do a few runs, see if you like it. And if not, you can always come back into the future, but you don't have to commit yourself. You can just do an hour every once in a while, test your luck, try to get one of those big ticket items. I hope you enjoyed this guide. I tried to do my best on explaining everything and giving my thought process. Of course, I have been streaming this entire process on Twitch, as well as many other farms. I've been streaming on Twitch for a few years now, so if you do want to come and check out that, Twitch will be linked down below. And of course, the full detailed guide of this post will be linked in Reddit down below, as well as many other data collections on dungeons. Like always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.